Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator. And today, as you guys can see, we are taking another look at Beam EyeTracker. This is by far the cheapest and best head and eye tracking solution that is currently on the market. That is a payware. Stick around, we'll talk about the differences and some of the advantages and disadvantages of the software as I also walk you through how I configure mine as it's time to do that yet again. Stick around. If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides from Microsoft Flight Simulator or simply interested in supporting the channel, please consider joining us on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides as well as any future releases that come down the road. Patreon link can be found in the description below.
Overkill simulations, watch us as we fly.
All right, guys. So first off, what is Beam EyeTracker? Beam EyeTracker is a payware software that requires a use of a single webcam. Now that webcam can actually be a cell phone camera, an actual webcam. I've got a 19 by 20 or 1920 by 1080 Pro Stream from Logitech. It's like a $40 webcam, I think, that's sitting on top of the here. I'll actually show it to you guys real quick. There it is, right there. Nothing fancy, right? Let's get my mug back in the shot here. Oh, no. Hi. Anyway, so it requires use of any webcam or any cell phone camera. Cell phone camera, obviously, it would be a wireless connection, but it does work just fine. It's a little delayed that I've noticed in the past, but that's going to be completely based on Wi-Fi strength and signaling. So there's a lot of factors that go into any kind of Wi-Fi broadcasting. So I'm not going to be showing that at all here today because your router may be different than mine. There may be separation between rooms, things like that. There's all kinds of things that affect Wi-Fi connectivity, especially when we're talking about streaming a video service, which is essentially what this would be doing. So we're sticking to a wired connection. That's why we're using the ProStream webcam. Again, guys, look at that up on Amazon. I think when I got it, it was like $40. It's really not bad at all, and it's a fantastic webcam, especially for what we're doing here. Now, this offers both head and eye tracking. I'm going to show you guys what it does in its default configuration. I've already calibrated, but that's as far as I've gone. So you guys are going to see how responsive it really is in its default format, and then I'm going to go through my configuration, things that I like. I am actually not a big fan of eye tracking specifically. I know there are some people who love it. I don't. The only time that I ever really appreciated eye tracking was in the Pimax Crystal, not the Crystal Light, but the actual Crystal itself. It was nice in VR. It was kind of cool being able to look down and see that clarity. But when it comes to 2D here on the monitor, I don't like the eye tracking. I think when you move your eyes and just having the camera sort of make those small adjustments, it gets weird for me. So I won't be showing the eye tracking after the initial setup here that I've shown you, that I'm about to show you guys. And you guys can actually sort of see that it's already picking up my eyes as I move them around. It works very, very well. So there's also two different payment methods. You can do a one-time, one and done, and there's also a subscription method that you guys can use as well to use Beam. A link to Beam will be down in the description below. If you guys are interested, please use that link as it does help me out as well. If you guys find this video useful, of course, hit that like and subscribe. It definitely helps also. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first off, as you guys can see, even with a hat on, something like that, doesn't have any issue whatsoever. So in its default form, there is another software that we are still required to use for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that is the OpenTrack software. So I'm going to show you guys one more thing here. I'm going to see if I can't make this work a little bit better here. Let me do this for you guys so you guys can see how it all works from the hidden panel. So give me just a moment. I have to adjust something here. And go 0. There it is. Hey, got me twice. That nobody should have to suffer that. But if we go to Beam, here is the side panel. The thing I don't like is, as far as I'm aware, this panel can't be moved. And to the developer, if you see this, I really wish you'd undock this. It'd be nice to be able to have this up, especially when you have multiple displays and things like that. It makes it nice to be able to move that away from the taskbar. I don't normally run my sim on the same monitor as where my taskbar exists, so it'd be nice to be able to move that around, especially when you're configuring or tracking, maybe doing any kind of troubleshooting. So the only thing that we need is the game extensions here. Now you do have the option of a overlay, as you guys should be able to see. Let me look over at OBS so you guys can see it. There you go. Tells you where your eyes are looking. Now that is absolutely weird. I'm focusing more on it than anything, so we're going to turn that back off. But if you want to see its reactivity, you can do that. But we need the game extensions turned on. This window will populate when you... they'll also have a game extensions. I've already disabled it, but it walks you through how to set that up as well. Now, I'm not going to be, like I said, I'm not going to be worrying about eye tracking. So what I'm actually going to do here is let's go ahead and start the camera. And I'm just using my eyes, you guys. Let me... Oh, wait. I just realized what I did. Let's get that crop back up for you guys so you don't have to see that crap. There we go. Hit close. There we go. All right. So OpenTrack, this is both OpenTrack and Beam in their default as they are when you start configuration. Okay? The other thing you have to think about as you're watching this is that the monitor you guys are seeing this on is a super ultra wide Samsung Galaxy G9 or Samsung G9, excuse me, super ultra wide 49-inch monitor. So my points of calibration were very far from where they would probably be on a standard monitor. So keep that in mind. That's part of why the tracking is so dramatized here. But we're going to narrow that down because I'm running... I'm going to stop that because it's driving me crazy. We are running the simulator at 2560 by 1440. So we're not running at the full 5120 by 1440 that this monitor supports. I actually don't like flight simulation, especially Microsoft Flight Simulator, in the super ultra wide. I think it's weird. It sort of gives you like a glass bowl effect for me that I don't care for. So I always run at a significantly smaller resolution, about half the resolution in that case. So now let's go and let's talk about some configuration changes. Now, one of the things I am going to do, I know I already disabled that so you guys can't see what I'm doing, but actually, if I go into settings, you guys may be able to. Yes, you can. Okay, cool. So I want to disable the eye tracking. Okay, I don't like it. Like I said, I told you guys for this particular scenario, I don't like eye tracking. And let's see here. That sets the overlay of the eye tracking overlay. Eye tracking. So I'm just going to set everything down to 0 here. And that should stop all of my eye tracking. If I come back over here and restart the service, notice that it is no longer tracking my eyes. I still have the head tracking, which is what I prefer. Okay, so that's the first step. Everything else that I do, I use an OpenTrack. By the way, guys, a link to OpenTrack will be in the description below as well. OpenTrack is completely free. Okay, you do not have to buy anything to use OpenTrack with this. So I'm done as far as my preferences. I'm done with the Beam EyeTracker. Okay, so now I'm just going to close that settings window, and we're going to do everything here from OpenTrack. So from OpenTrack, we have the default eye, and I'm going to go ahead and stop the profile here. Let's go ahead and create a new profile, if I can remember how to do that. Been a minute. There it is. Create empty config. And we'll call this MSFS, I guess. I usually use the same one for pretty much all of my simulators, but for your sake, if you wanted to change that configuration based on the simulator or game that you were using, that's how you would do so. And then you would simply drop down and select the one that you want when you're ready. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes of it. Here under point tracker, you notice that when we created a new profile, it changed the point track. When you change the point tracker to Beam or eyewear Beam, there it is, and that's it. Okay. Now we're going to go to start so we can see everything as we're doing it. And I'm going to go into the mappings. You can map asymmetrically or you can have it mirror both sides. I typically will do asymmetric mapping because sometimes I want a stronger pull on one direction versus the other. Now, roll is totally up to you. We're going to try leaving roll on, but for the beginning stages, what I recommend is as you are first starting this, okay, is work with one axis at a time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to output, and we're just going to work with the yaw. So I'm going to disable everything else. Whoa. There we go. And that's going to be x-axis. It's going to be the y-axis. It's going to be z-axis. Okay. The next thing we're doing is going to go to shortcuts, and I need to set a keybind to center my screen. I'm just going to use a joystick that I have over here. You guys should be able to see it on the screen. And let's pick a button. Let's use the pinky button. So I'm just going to select it. There it is. There's the bind. Hit OK. And now we're back to our center view. The other thing is be comfortable when you're ready. Be in a standard flight position. You know, don't be all rigid and I'm going to be focused because that's probably not how you're going to fly, right? So try to get yourself relatively to the condition that you're going to be in as you fly. Okay, so this is sort of close for what I'm doing here. It's a little bit different. But So now I'm, like we said, now notice what else is happening. As I turn, it's inverted. So we're going to go back to options. We're going to go to the output, and we're going to go to our yaw and invert it. So now we have that. Like I said, you can control everything that you need will be available in OpenTrack. So we're done there. And now we're going to go into the mappings and start actually drawing this out. And the way I think about it is the approach, okay, when you're flying the pattern. I want to be able to catch the threshold of the runway should be approximately 45 degrees off my left shoulder as I'm coming in if we're in a left-hand circuit, right? So I'm going to turn my head comfortably. Don't do this. Like, that's the beauty of this is that you don't have to do this. Fly comfortable, right? That's what I was just got done saying. So I'm going to recenter myself one more time because I sort of moved. And now I want to be able to go to about here, maybe a little bit further, and I want to be able to see the runway. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a point right here, okay? Wherever the red dot is where it's tracking you, and we're going to grab that and pull it up. And I usually recommend going a little further than what you would normally, what you need. Don't go to the minimum, go a little further and learn how to use that, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing with the right. So I don't want to go much further than this because then it becomes uncomfortable. And again, pull it until your eyes are resting. Now, if you find yourself pulling too far forward, bring the dot back, right? The further this way it is, the less head movement will be required. So we're going to put it right about here, give or take. And now we'll check it. So I'm flying along. Time to look. Okay, there we go. And this is very, very basic, guys. I'm doing a very ugly configuration here, all right? There are ways to smooth this out, okay? So, for example, we could take another dot here and sort of bring it down so that way it's a nice smooth when you're just looking in the cockpit. Okay? And then when you need that extreme, it pulls. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. So let's actually drag that a little bit further. Okay? But that way the rest of the curvature is a much smoother. We'll drag this out a little bit further. The more of a curve you have, the smoother the action will be. Okay, so the more, and by the way, to get rid of these, you simply right click on it. The more straight the line is, the more aggressive it will be. Okay, so curve is going to equal a more natural progression. Okay, and the straight lines are going to be far more aggressive. Okay, all right, so I hope that makes sense, guys. So now let's go ahead and we're going to hit OK here. And I'm going to do the same thing now with pitch. So we're going to go to the yaw and we're going to disable it again. And I'm going to go back to my pitch. And this is just the easiest way to do this. And again, we have to invert. There we go. Okay, and let's go to our mapping. And make sure we select pitch. And you can also set the max input and output. So the max input that I can give is 90 degrees. The max output it will give is 90 degrees. But we can change that to the max output of 180 degrees. But, I mean, then you're going to be looking behind you. That'd be weird. So for what we're doing here, and again, up and down is typically one where you'll definitely want the asymmetric. So let's start with down. And again, we're going to click here. And you don't want to have to do this because then you can't see the screen. So again, keep it comfortable. That's the whole point. This is one of the advantages to eye tracking versus or head tracking versus VR. Is that you don't have to. So let's come up here and picture looking at the overhead panel. Okay. But again, from here, we want sort of just a nice touch. So let's pull that down. Part of the stuttering you guys are seeing also is because I am on a display track in OBS or display recording versus actually recording the game footage. And actually, I think I might have two of them on. So let's do that. But again, this is just showing you a very rough example of how to do this. So that's the other catch too. And the further out we extend this as well, will also smooth things out. Because you're getting a closer to a one-to-one movement. Okay? Let me actually just get rid of that. Oops. Okay. Oh, you know what? It's the hat. Okay. So there we go. I'm pretty happy with that. All right. So now let's do the same thing with the next step. So we're going to go back into options, go back to output, disable the pitch. And actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and see where we're at now. Yaw, pitch, roll. And let's recenter our camera. And something inverted. Interesting. Now it's the opposite. Ha! That's funny. There we go. So did that. It's interesting that it wanted it inverted a minute ago, but now it doesn't. So now as we're looking around, it's actually pretty good. So the next one that you're going to be thinking about is when you want to look closely at something. So let's talk about the Z-axis. That's going to be my next one that I like to work with. So we're going to come in here, go back to our output, find the Z-axis, and drop it in there. And so this is going to be one of those ones. I'm going to move the mic for a second. And let's say we wanted to get a close look at the GNS. Okay, so that's pretty good. Sitting back, not too bad. What I typically end up doing is on the Z-axis is I will do asymmetric. We're going to lean back, and what I will do is usually take this and just, yeah, like very low. Very low. And what that will prevent is that will prevent you from moving the camera back to where you're in the seat. Okay? So you want a little bit of motion just to sort of keeps it more natural. But outside of that, I usually leave the Z-axis alone. So now we're going to move over to the Y-axis. So let's talk about the Y-axis and get it set up. Let's go back to our output. Let's find the Y. And drop it in. And see, now it puts us way up there. Again, let's get comfortable. Center. And again, look at that GNS. Okay, so go into map in. That's not bad. Okay. So I'm actually honestly, I'm pretty happy with that. I really am. So the last one's going to be the X-axis. Let's get it in there. Hit OK. Now the only thing that I don't want is that, right? But that's up to you. Like if you're okay with that occasionally happening, you know, you're fine. Or you can again go into your mappings, go to the X, go to the asymmetric, and you can limit that down to where you can't move over. But at the same token, if you're flying from the first officer seat or your co-pilot seat, you're going to want that. It's going to be broken, right? So for me, I usually leave the X-axis alone. We're just going to leave it as is here. And that is that. I mean, that's it. So we have our center. The only other thing that I do recommend toggling is the toggle. So we'll find a button here. I use the pinky button for that one. Maybe we'll change this. Let's go back to our bindings. And let's change it to this one to recenter. And that one. There we go. And you can even do a toggle while held. So if you want to bind one that while I'm holding it, it locks the camera. So this is helpful when you're trying to read something or see something on a screen, but you don't want to necessarily turn it on and off. For me, the toggle is the same. I mean, you're just pushing the button. Now we're just holding it is the only difference. But then when you let go, you're back at it. Or you can just toggle, right? And you can leave it as is. And then when I'm done with it, bring it back over here, but you'll have to center is the difference. So it really depends on how you want to go. Where here we can do this, hold it, do what we need to do, sit back, and we're back to where we were. Okay. So guys, that is, again, this is Beam EyeTracker. Let's go ahead and turn it off now. This is Beam EyeTracker with the use of OpenTrack software. I use this in both Microsoft Flight Simulator as well as DCS World. It works phenomenal, and it is an incredibly cheap solution for what it offers. The eye tracking, as you guys saw, was very reactive. It's very, very, very good. You have a new number of different devices that it can be used with. So I really, really recommend this if you guys are looking for a very cheap and effective, that's the kicker, effective head and eye tracking system. This is also phenomenal for those of you who may fly on a laptop. Most laptops, especially nowadays, come with a built-in webcam, so you don't even have to worry about going out and buying one. It'll work just fine with the one that's there. So this is great for any kind of mobile device. This is great for me. I tend to bounce between my desk and the cockpit, which is currently in the garage right now, going under construction. So for me, it's very handy because I can simply just do a real quick. I have two of those webcams. I have one here and one on the cockpit. And what I do with Beam is I'll just recalibrate for the one that I want. I don't usually have to change my OpenTrack settings at all. I leave them as is, and simply just change from one to the other. So it's extremely handy, you guys. It is a very, very well written program. It's constantly being updated. New features are being added. I use it, as you guys can see, in a very, very basic form. But I do recommend that you guys go through all of the different settings and configurations that can be done within the software itself. The developer is fantastic. Make sure that you guys check out their Discord. It can be found on their website. He's great at, literally the developer himself is great about responding to customers and helping and troubleshooting any issues that may arise. I met him at the Vegas Flight Sim Expo 2024. Absolutely wonderful person, great to talk to, completely interested in doing this for the flight sim community and keeping things at a reasonable cost. So with that being said, folks, as always, I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Stay safe and healthy. I'll catch you in the next one.